Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and this week most of you have seen the very interesting, very intense debate going on since President Obama announced his support for gay marriage. I saw President Obama this weekend, actually. I didn't talk to him, but he was actually the commencement speaker at my daughter's graduation at Barnard College, which is the sister school for Columbia. And he actually gave a very good speech. And he didn't mention marriage equality very much. The president of the university, however, really went in on the topic. And the issue has really led to some divisiveness within the black community, particularly within the black church and those who are deeply associated with the black church. You have on one hand, you have individuals like Otis Moss, the head of Trinity United Church of Christ, where Reverend Jeremiah Wright once preached, and Mark Lamar Hill, a professor that I have a lot of respect for, who are basically saying, you know, black people need to get over it. The black church needs to get rid of this homophobia, in which I guess they define in opposition to gay marriage as being homophobic, which I think might be a little bit problematic. But then you have individuals on the other side like Pastor Jamal Bryant and another pastor named Emmett Burns, who's also a state legislator in Maryland, who are saying that they're highly disappointed with President Obama for taking the position that he took on gay marriage. So to talk about this, I wanted to bring in my partner in crime, editor-in-chief at Your Black World, Yvette Carnell. And first, I have to ask Yvette, how are you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, very well. And I was, really curious to get some intelligent takes on this gay marriage issue, in terms of what's been going on and how we might process some of this. And so, what say you, Yvette?
I think, first and foremost, I wrote this the day it came out. I've always said that this is a good thing. This is a good thing. It's mostly symbolic, pure enough, but it's a good thing because he's the first president to ever come out in favor of same-sex marriage. And same-sex marriage for me is as it always has been. Same-sex marriage is about equal protection under the law. It's not about how the president feels about gay people. It's not about any kind of emotion that he may have or his evolution on gay marriage. I really don't care about any of those things. The only thing I care about is equal protection under the law, extending the same rights to gay and lesbian people that heterosexual people have every day. Now, bringing that down to the black church, I heard someone, a parishioner, actually, who was coming out of a church say something. They interviewed him. He was coming out of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And he said, really, the job of the pastor is to protect the meaning of the Bible. The job of the president is to protect the meaning of the Constitution. Those are two very different jobs. I don't really care what you do in terms of the Bible, because I'm probably not going to come to your church. So that doesn't matter to me. And if I come to your church and I don't like the way you interpret the Bible, I don't like the way you do anything, I can leave. But that's not the president's job. He's not your pastor. So this whole idea that, well, I'm going to sit home because the president is X, Y, and Z, this president has done a lot of things which don't necessarily jive with the Bible. I mean, the Bible says a lot about killing and murdering and slaughtering, and we have drones dropping bombs and killing all sorts of little brown people elsewhere in the world, and that hasn't bothered you at all. But all of a sudden, gay marriage, you're so sexually aroused. These Christians who are so sexually aroused when the thought of two people of the same sex gets together is just, I'm not going to say anything about drones killing people, but two people of the same sex having sex, that's going to get me to the polls or going to make me stay home. So I have a problem with it. And let me just say one other thing before I break. I also have a problem with people who have their own discretions, such as Mr. Jamal Bryant, pastor. I have people who have their own discretions, who have been put out on Front Street, coming out now and saying that they have an issue with President Obama's stance on same-sex marriage. The last I checked, the sin was a sin, and I don't think he should be throwing any stones anywhere.
Wow. Well, it sounds like a stone was just thrown at Jamal Bryant. So I will see if that stone hits him in the head. I think that this debate is very interesting. Same-sex marriage is one of those things that I really feel that I can observe from a strongly objective viewpoint, primarily because I've never really cared that much about it. Not because I don't think that the gay community deserves the same rights as everybody else. I feel that way, actually. I'm very much in support of same-sex marriage. I think it's totally okay. But it's never really been an issue for me because it doesn't affect me. No gay person has ever asked for my hand in marriage. Or actually no heterosexual person either. Except one. I didn't want to marry her. And so I've never understood why the issue was so important to so many people. One thing that's really interesting is that, if you look throughout history, you can see where these issues, these religious issues can really resonate with voters. President Bush, in my opinion, won the 2004 election in large part because of gay marriage. They got people to vote against their economic interests, because he came out and said that he's against gay marriage. And I know African Americans who voted Republican in that election because of gay marriage. And I never really understood why it was so important to these people. Now here's something that's interesting to me, though. Here's why I have an issue. And again, I speak as somebody who is fine with gay marriage. But my issue is that I feel that the depiction of the black church's response to gay marriage, to some extent, is very condescending. It's racist. And the reason I feel that way is because we're constantly dealing with these scenarios where you have a clash between traditional black values, which can be very conservative. We know that the African American community has a lot of closet conservatives, and the liberal agenda. Now, we're in alignment with the liberals and the Democrats primarily because they still with us in civil rights, and the Republicans are unbelievably racist. But if you look at a lot of other issues, like reproductive rights and things like that, you see that there's a lot of conservatism in the black community. And what happens is when there is a divide, like when Roland Martin does something, which I thought what he did was absolutely silly, but a lot of black people support him. A lot of black folks from the church said, that's okay or whatever. And you see these scenarios where the liberal establishment looks at us and they say, now that's bad. You're bad little Negroes. Like they feel like they have the right to educate us, like we are some sort of, we're this collective glob of uneducated, ignorant savages who need to be civilized. Well, you know what? I honestly don't think that opposing gay marriage or not being comfortable with gay marriage makes you some sort of idiot or some sort of savage. But that's how they treat us. And it's interesting because when we approach liberal organizations about our issues, like mass incarceration, racial inequality, economic inequality, educational inequality, they don't have time for that. But when they have an issue, when MSNBC has an issue, when CNN has an issue, they drop the hammer on us and say, niggas, get in line. And I'm sorry to use the N-word, but I had to use it because that's how I end up feeling. It's like, why are you suddenly taking everything that we're raised on and somehow reducing it to some type of ignorance? Like, because you disagree with me, you're obviously stupid. No. This debate can be civilized and it can be respectful. It's not a respectful conversation right now because what you've got is the liberal media powers that be that are lining up the guns and putting them in the face of black people and saying, you need to get it together. If you look at the cover, if you look at the Root, which, run by Henry Louis Gates, who's close to Obama, close to the Democrats and liberals, all that. So they're going to push the liberal agenda. What's the title of their latest e-blast, the title on their website? The black church needs to get over it. If you go to the Griot, their position is the black church needs to get over it. Most of the liberal attack dogs that work for President Obama, whose job it is to control black people, the black church needs to get over it. Well, me trying to persuade you from a position of respect is very different from me saying, well, your dumb ass just needs to get over it. I think that's the problem. I think that the conversation needs to be had in a way where you make legitimate points and you deal with the issues as they stand in a way that shows respect for the individuals who disagree with you. And I just don't see that in terms of how the liberal establishment is going about trying to imperialize the brain space of those who are close to the black church. Yvette?
Well, I definitely think there's a difference because you have right-wing people, you have people who are white conservatives, who are white evangelicals who share the same position. And let me just say a lot of them are extremely bigoted. And you'll have them go on Hardball or, all sorts of other MSNBC, CNN shows, and they're treated with a certain amount of respect. They're treated with deference. They're treated with the thought in mind that they are trying to protect the meaning of the Bible. So they're treated with a certain amount of deference, whereas with black people who share that exact same view, they're treated as if they're just stupid for believing that. So I do believe that when you take white evangelicals and black evangelicals, the way they're treated is very, very different in terms of how they're approached on the issue of gay marriage. So I definitely think that's a problem. But part of the problem here too, and this is part of the thing. Part of the problem here too is the reason that black people and black churchgoers aren't taken seriously is because they're inconsistent. White evangelicals have always been consistent. We don't like gay marriage. We don't like what we consider the gay agenda. We're not voting for Obama. We're going to stay on the side of evangelical stuff, and so we're going to do that. Black churches have been inconsistent, but when Obama was not in favor of same-sex marriage, and when I was on Your Black World and other blogs and reading comments, it was all about, well, Obama's right. He and they were putting quotes from Leviticus and all types of Bible books that they don't read on a regular basis, and they were throwing them in the comment section. But now that Obama is in favor of same-sex marriage, everybody is, well, we should come around and we should do X, Y, and Z. And so you sort of see this whole thing where black people in the black church, especially, are kind of contorting themselves to kind of to really decide how they feel, and they're really not acting based on principle. They're acting based on what must I tell myself to get myself to think that I should reelect President Obama. So they're moving in response to Obama as opposed to having Obama move in response to the electorate. So I don't think that engenders a lot of respect. Now, having said that, I will say that they can do that. You, according to Christians, shouldn't be taken literally. I mean, there's something in the Bible about executing women who got married and weren't virgins. And I don't see people taken to the street, on that one. So I definitely get it. But there is a thought that black people, in terms of Obama, are inconsistent and are voting based on race politics, pigmentation politics, whatever you want to call it, and aren't voting on principle. So if people think you're unprincipled to begin with, it's easy to be like, just get over it. You're just gonna do, you just love the guy anyway. So why are we even having this conversation?
Well, I think that's a very interesting point. And actually, the article that I wrote a couple of days ago was one where I actually talked about what you and I have discussed before, where there are so many African Americans, particularly women, who literally are in love with President Obama and kind of deal with him in a way that a woman might deal with a man that she loves deeply, who might be quote unquote flawed in ways that she might be uncomfortable with. We know, for example, that throughout the black community, homophobia is rampant. We know that one of the biggest nightmares of a lot of black women in the church is not that your man is sleeping with other women, it's that your man might be sleeping with another man. We owe that to Oprah Winfrey, to be, where it's created this sort of, crazed McCarthyism when it comes to sexuality, where any brother with a potted plant in his living room is suspect of being on the down low. And so one thing that's interesting, though, and this is something that goes deep to this hypocrisy within the church that I think people are leveraging on to convince people to change their opinion, is that it's one thing if a woman loves a man and she knows he's flawed, but she can look the other way because he doesn't talk about it, she doesn't talk about it. Maybe the other women are around, but she doesn't see it, she doesn't hear about it, he doesn't mention it, so she can pretend like it doesn't exist. But when the man walks up and says, by the way, I've got other women and I'm gay, then that makes her deal with that, right? She is suddenly confronted with the thing that she was able to so conveniently ignore. And my point on this is that I don't think any person in the black church that loved President Obama 2 months ago thought that he wasn't in support of gay marriage. I don't think anybody thought none of them would bet money that Obama would go against gay marriage. I mean, maybe, they believed him to be a guy rooted in the church, but they know the Democratic liberal agenda is one that supports gay marriage. But for Obama to come out and put it in their face and to say, I know that you might have suspected this, but here's the fact. There's no question anymore about the fact that I am, this person who supports gay marriage, and I'm coming out of the closet on that issue, pun intended. That requires that person to come face to face with their denial, maybe perhaps with their hypocrisy. And I think that makes that creates a very difficult scenario for these women that are in love with Obama, because at that point you are making that choice, my pastor or my president. I love them both, and I don't know which one I'm going to remain loyal to on this particular issue.
Oh, I think you're definitely right. People are having a no pun intended come to Jesus meeting. What do I really care about? Because let's talk about it. Homosexuality is just one issue, and it really doesn't affect you. It affects gay people who get married. If you're not gay and you're not planning to get married, it does not affect your everyday life. But you have all sorts of economic issues. There are military issues. There are incarceration issues. You have all sorts of other issues that impact you, impact your sons, impact your husbands, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, everybody. So you have to really think about this. And part of the problem that the media has had in my book is trying to portray African American voters as single issue voters. We have a lot of concerns. What makes you think that our only concerns are gay marriage? What really makes you think that we're just these little simple minded people who only go to the voting booth with one thing in mind? In a lot of ways, we have a lot of, and I've said this, the black people have become the Tea Party in a lot of ways, because the way we just rally around Obama is kind of like how they rally around issues. But really, we're not them. Really, most of the time we're able to see that there's a lot of different stuff. There are a lot of moving parts going on. So this whole thing of will black people stay home, I just don't think, first of all, that's going to happen. But I don't like the way the debate has been framed. And I also don't like the way evangelical black people have framed themselves in this debate. I saw Sophia Nelson tweet out something the other day, which was to the effect of, Jesus had to go through this, and, people didn't agree with Jesus and things of that nature, as if she's being crucified. Let's just put it out there. People not agreeing with you, people disagreeing with you, even fervently, even, people being agitated with you. That's not crucifixion. That's not you martyring yourself. So let's just stop all this hyperbolic conversation too. So it's for you to pretend that if you're the second coming because people are disagreeing with you about President Obama or disagreeing with you about same-sex marriage. That's having a disagreement. You don't have a thorn of crown on your head. You haven't been nailed anybody's cross. People just don't agree with what you have to say.
Well, one point that should be made about Sophia Nelson too is she's the author of Black Woman Redefined. Sophia and I have a wonderful love-hate relationship. Sometimes she loves me, sometimes she wants to beat me up. But we got to remember this too, and this is an important point to tie in here. Sophia is a Republican, from what I understand, or she,
exactly.
So yeah. Let's understand where this conversation is going. When you get, and the liberals have to be careful about this as well. When you are going to the black church and saying get over it, that you're hypocritical about everything else, so you might as well be hypocritical about this too. What you're doing is you're laying out an ultimatum. You're laying out a line in the sand where you're saying, either continue the hypocrisy that we've already pointed out to you, or go and just abandon ship altogether and become true to who you truly are. Well, guess what? If many of these African Americans that support Obama become true to who they really are, as Bible loving black folks, they're going to start voting Republican. So Sophia has a horse in the game where it's not a matter of, in her mind, of protecting President Obama or how do we deal with Obama. No, it's like, look, this gay marriage issue is huge. This is another reason why you should not vote for Obama, because you are church-going black folks, and I want you to come home and be completely true to who you really want to believe that you are, to become a pure virgin of the Christian that you want to believe yourself to be. And so I think that the liberals have to be careful in terms of how they frame this debate, because what you're doing when you say, this is my homeboy Mark Lamar Hill kind of went into this, where he talked about the things you mentioned, where the Bible says to do this and to do that, but you don't pay attention to that, but yet you pay attention to this. So what you're saying is, well, since I'm already ignoring 3 or 4 things in the Bible, I might as well ignore the 5th thing, which means I might as well ignore the 6th and the 7th, which ad infinitum, that argument says I might as well throw the Bible out altogether. Fuck the Bible. That's what you're basically saying, and excuse my French. People know that I cuss. And
but I think that's what they've already said. I think Christians have really already said fuck the Bible. They have said fuck the Bible except for these 3-4 things. And that's the things they care about. You want to talk to me about how much you care about marriage when the majority of little black babies are born out of wedlock? Come on, get out of here. If you cared about marriage, you wouldn't have so many babies out of wedlock. So, you really do come across as very hypocritical. Because I'm not saying that white single motherhood doesn't exist, but in the evangelical church, you see less of it than you see amongst regular white people. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of single. We had a story not too long ago about the gospel singer who had children who were she was a single mother. Is this sort of hypocrisy? It looks like to the rest of us who are looking from the outside in, I don't attend anybody's church. So to the rest of us looking for the outside in, the reason I don't, it looks like you have abandoned most of the stuff in the Bible. And you got these top 3 things that you care about. You care about gay marriage. You care about a couple of other things that you claim are big deals to you. But like I said, if you really cared about marriage, what about the deterioration of the black family? I don't see you actively engaged in that. I see when that happens, I see you say, well, it happens. Let's just forgive, and we're going to make a way, and God going to make a way, and all this stuff.
We're going to pray on it.
We're going to pray about it. But when somebody comes in and says, I'm gay, oh my God, Jesus Christ, never end. So that's the problem. That's the problem that I have with the black church. That's the problem that I have with the hypocrisy. But what I would say is that the liberal establishment does need to frame this debate differently. They need to ask black people and say, I want you to tell me how much you care about this as opposed to other things. You have to decide how much this matters to you. Now, I've said before that I have issues with Obama. I may or may not vote for him in 2012. I haven't decided, but I have at least 10 things I can run down with you that I have a serious problem with Obama. It's not a one issue type of thing for me. So when you ask black people, you have to ask black people, how much does this matter to you as opposed to other things that matter to you? You can't just come out and say, well, you're stupid because you believe X, Y, and Z. I might believe that. I might believe you're stupid because you believe, somebody spent 7 days in the belly of a whale, and you take that literally. But the point of the matter is that the liberal establishment, you have to ask yourself, how much does this matter to you as it relates to other things? You can't just put it out there and be like, you're stupid for believing this. No, who wants to be called stupid? Who are you to call me stupid like that?
Right, and I'm going to tell you, and this is a frustration I've heard other people express, is they feel that as black people who are aligned with the Democrats, that whenever even in private conversation, you'll be talking to some liberal, let's say a liberal white woman, and you're a black man, and you bring up an issue that matters to you as a black man. And in many cases, I've heard people say they have these conversations where the liberal kind of, says, well, that's not really that important. What really matters are, these other issues, right? And it's interesting because, there's not a quid pro quo. It's sort of like, again, black people are the political mistresses of the Democratic Party. How does a man treat a mistress? He expects the mistress to be loyal to him, but he ain't doing nothing for her. He don't owe her anything. And so, really what's going on here is that the minute black people say, look, you know what? We know you have issues. You want to talk about the environment. You want to talk about, some of these other issues that relate to, civil liberties violations or reproductive rights or whatever the case may be. Fine. But guess what? We have issues too. We want to deal with the mass incarceration epidemic. We want to put racism on Front Street too and talk about that racial inequality that we're all dealing with in the workplace. But when those issues are brought to the table, when a black man shows up at MSNBC and says, I want to talk about African American issues, it gets thrown under the table. It always takes a back seat to the liberal issues. And to some extent, what's really interesting as well is that they've even hijacked many of our leading black public figures with power and money to get them to talk about liberal issues before they talk about black issues. Why is Al Sharpton's first conversation with black America, things like immigration or the gay marriage issue, et cetera? He's a pastor, right? So that's really interesting too, that you basically co-opted many of the leading black public figures and got them talking about everything else before they even talk about black people. Well, I'm sorry, and I understand how that works. It's based on money, power, and platforms. MSNBC has a relationship with the White House. They reward leading black public figures for coming on the network and talking about their issues. It's like, look, you can come in our house, but you need to do our work, boy. You're not here to bring your agenda to us. We're bringing our agenda to you. And that's what bothers me. And again, I speak as a person who supports gay marriage. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. But I think that when you walk up in our house, when you walk into our churches, even if whether they're imperfect or not, we know that there's hypocrisy across the board. The Democrats and the liberals have a lot of hypocrisy. The Republicans have hypocrisy. Every institution has some degree of hypocrisy. I think the hypocrisy in the black church is somewhat disturbing and complex, but I don't think it's that much worse than hypocrisy we see in other places. But when you come in that house, you come with some degree of respect for the traditions that some of us hold dear, and you talk to us in a way that says that we respect you, and this is a quid pro quo. You take care of us on this issue, we'll take care of you on that issue. But if you're not going to deal with our issues, then I really don't want to hear much about yours. So I think that conversation has to be one of balance, and it's not a balanced discussion right now. It's like basically You're ignorant for believing what you believe. You need to get over it, and you need to be just like us. That I don't like that. I'll let you get the last word, and then we'll bounce it back.
I would agree with you. What happens, it's almost as if, I remember being on a radio show a while ago, and someone said it's almost as if before a black person makes it big in media or in politics, they have to sign a piece of paper that says, I now accept all of your issues as my own, and I abandon all of black issues. I am no longer connected to those people, and I will not advocate for their positions any longer. And that's how you maintain yourself, and that's the deal that you make. So it's almost as if that happens. So we have people joining hands, and I'm not saying you shouldn't join hands with other communities, whether it be the gay community, Hispanic community, whatever. What I'm saying is that we have people in our community where their issues, our issues, African American issues are not a priority. They prioritize other issues and talk about black issues on the margins. So they may have a discussion about black issues on a radio show or something like that. But when it comes to prime time, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or whatever, they're not going to bring that up. They're not going to bring up incarceration, but they're not going to bring up, drug legalization or marijuana legalization in terms of how it impacts young black men and how they're just put in cages for nonviolent offenses for years. They're not going to bring that up. So I think there is a larger issue here in terms of the people in our community that speak for us. We see a black face and we think that person necessarily speaks for us, and that's not the case. Now, I understand if people who want to see Obama get reelected would come out and try to make the case as to why black people shouldn't abandon Obama because of this thing. But you have to ask yourself, you have to go back and say, when does this person come out on the forefront of other issues to challenge insulated White House on our issues? When have they advocated for us? Advocating for the White House isn't the same as advocating for black people. Advocating for the White House is advocating for one black man, and that's not good enough.
I agree with you 100%. And what we've seen very consistently is that you mentioned that African Americans are not one issue voters. Well, I think in at least one respect we might be, and it's the sense that you do what Obama says. You get on board, and if you don't, then you are an Uncle Tom or you are a traitor to your race, and we're going to attack you and ridicule you and whatever the case may be. And that's not how you deal with a politician. You do what the gay community has done. You bring your issue to the table and you say, if you don't address our issue, then we can go do something else. We may not vote for the Republicans, but we may not show up to the polls or whatever. And I think that, in this particular case, I think that's a prime example of what's been going on. I love the fact that President Obama has stood up for certain constituencies, but when you look back, you really don't see too many cases where we've been stood up for. And so don't come asking me for nothing if you ain't coming to my house bringing nothing. That's just, and I know that was a double negative, but you get the point. So, thank you very much, Yvette. I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. And, as we move forward in this debate, think carefully, think for yourself. Remember, you are your own greatest black leader. Don't let anybody co-opt your brain space, liberal, conservative, or otherwise, and go with your conscience and go with the issues and make sure you're educated and informed. Because if you don't know what you think, there is always somebody out there who wants to tell you what to think. So until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.